To start, I go to school in Boston. For privacy reasons, I'm not going to include the name of the school, but if anybody reading this also goes here, I think you'll be able to figure it out. So at the end of the spring semester last year, one of the dorm buildings on campus was closed for renovations. Since then, construction crews have been constantly working on completely stripping the building and redoing it. Lately it's become a bit of an issue because the dorm I'm living in now is right next to it, so residents are often woken up very early in the morning to work being done. In response, the school set up a meeting for students to voice their concerns to the project manager and members of the administration here. Obviously, nothing can be done to stop the construction, so they just want to make it look like they care and are trying to do something about it. I'll get back to this later. Anyway, on a few occasions, I've seen workers doing work right outside my window. There's probably a 20-foot gap between my room and a part of the building having all the construction being done, so I have a really clear view of anyone out there. If my window's open, I can also hear them talking. I never really thought much of it, and I expected to see people there. The weird thing is that sometimes the workers show up really late, like between the hours of 12:30 and 2 o'clock in the morning. I usually notice because I see flashlights moving outside my window and hear the door that leads onto the roof opening and shutting. At first, I was a little weirded out by it. Why would they need to be up there that late? As it continued though, I just started ignoring it because I figured it was just some late night crew or security that went up to make sure nothing was out of place. As I very recently found out though, that is not the case. About a week ago, I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep. Suddenly, a brief flash lit up the room. I looked around for a minute, and then it happened again. I looked out the window and realized it was just the workers walking around the roof with flashlights. I ignored them and tried to fall asleep. Before I could even close my eyes though, I heard a conversation. "He's sleeping," said a deep voice. "Yeah, looks like it," responded another voice. "Tonight?" asked the first voice. No, let's wait a little longer," said the second voice. "Whatever you say," said the first. Soon after, I heard the door shut and peeked out the window to see both of them had left. I stayed frozen in my bed for a while, wondering if they had been talking about me. I eventually told myself they were talking about a friend of theirs or something, and I had nothing to worry about. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. When I woke up, I was still a little worried, so I asked my roommates if they've ever seen or heard those guys out there. Both of them thought I was joking, but I assured them I was very serious. Both said they had no idea what I was talking about. They didn't come back for another week, but I saw them again, and I decided to attend the sit-down the school had set up. When it was my turn to speak, I asked about the late-night crew. I wanted to know why they were getting up there so late and if it was entirely necessary, as it was preventing me from getting a full night's rest. The project manager stared at me for a minute. "Late-night crew?" he asked. "Yeah, the guys who come there sometimes really late and just kind of walk around with flashlights," I responded. He stared at me for another minute or so. "We don't have a late night crew," he said in a quiet voice. No one said anything. Everyone was just staring at me. Finally, someone from the administration said that it was maybe homeless people who had found a way up the roof and were using it as shelter, and that they would keep a better eye on the entrance to the building at night. There are a lot of impoverished individuals in the area, so it sort of made sense. The only part I was still confused about was that the people aren't staying up there all night, but only for 5 to 10 minutes. I decided not to mention that part. That was 2 days ago. I didn't see anyone that night, but last night is a different story. Same as usual, I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when I heard the door open again. This time, though, there were no flashlights. Very slowly, I strained my neck to get a look out the window while still remaining hidden. Very slowly, I strained my neck to get a good look out the window while still remaining hidden. I saw 2 figures standing on the roof, facing my window. Nothing happened for about 30 seconds, and one of them said something. I recognized the 2 voices. Their conversation went a little like this. "Did you get the email from Bill?" Bill is the project manager. "Yeah, looks like this isn't gonna work out, huh?" "Guess not. You think he's listening now?" "It's possible." "Are you? Can you hear us, buddy? Are you listening?" At this point, my heart was practically beating through my chest. I didn't know how to react. I just stayed in the same position, completely frozen, hoping they would just leave. "Cut it out. We shouldn't be up here much longer." "What? I'm just messing around. But yeah, you're right. Looks like this is goodbye, bud. Don't worry though, we'll be seeing you around." After a brief moment of neither of them speaking, they both turned to the door and walked away. I didn't sleep much last night because of that. I don't really know how to handle something like this, and if I should bring it up with the school again. Based on what they said, it seems like they won't be around anymore. Still though, these guys know where I live. I can only hope they haven't seen my face, but I think I'll be avoiding the construction area for a while. Years ago, my mom told me about something that happened to her in college, and to this day is still one of the most horrifying things I can imagine waking up to. She still uses it to remind me to always be vigilant and to lock my dorm room. When my mom attended college, she lived in a regular student dorm, and back then, security was more basic than it is nowadays. She had a roommate that would often come home super late, drunk and high, and would often forget to lock their dorm room. It drove my mom crazy. So it's one of those nights where her roommate came home, drunk and then passed out, forgetting to lock the door again. My mom is fast asleep when some ninja instinct deep in her soul makes her wake up. She doesn't move, but something feels weird, like she's being watched, and she somehow senses a presence nearby. Opening her eyes, she sees the shadowy figure of a man at the foot of her bed, watching her, and there's something in his hand that looks like a knife. My mom sits straight up and the man dashes out of their room, just as my mom starts screaming at her roommate to wake up. Terrified, they call the police, who come in and investigate to see if they can find any evidence. They discover that the man had peed in several spots around the room. There's no way to tell if this is the first time the guy broke in, or if he'd done it before. After that, her roommate always remembered to lock their door, and my mom slept with a knife under her pillow. She constantly checks to make sure I'm remembering to lock my door, since I currently live in a college dorm. My mom says she's just thankful that the guy fled as soon as she woke up, rather than attacking. Near 2 years ago, I had moved in with my girlfriend to a small but cheap apartment in Montreal. I had been working night shifts while in university, so most evenings she would call me before bed to talk. She mentioned she kept hearing noises in the evenings and thought it might be mice. I had never noticed the sounds but agreed it was possible, being an old building. So I set traps the next morning. However, more and more she complained about the scratching. I would even listen for it when I was home nights, but nothing. No sounds. A few weeks later, our friends down the hall asked if we could water their plants while away. One night, I received a freaked out phone call from my girlfriend. She was in the neighbor's apartment and began to hear the scratching. So she looked through the door hole and saw an old lady scratching at her door with scissors. I ran home while she called the police. As it turns out, the old lady had picked her. She started to stalk her. She knew our schedules well enough that she was coming by only when I was at work, with her scissors each night, hoping to be let in.